What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more punk rock, and we're back with some more Dead Kennedys, back with another muckraking classic, and one which I think has very interesting and sort of challenging lyrics, and that it sort of addresses a situation that I think maybe a number of punk bands speak to, which is to say, like, civil disobedience and even like organized resistance to the state. But it does so in a way which sort of speaks to the dark underbelly, which sort of is a critique of the people who would organize against, arms or institutions of oppression of the state. Which is to say, we're going to listen to a tune called Riot from Plastic Surgery Disasters, another record that I'm still very happy and lucky to own on vinyl, which is from Jello Biafra's wonderful Alternative Tentacles independent label. This is Virus 27, Virus being the cat number that was used, or I think is still used. But yeah, we're going to listen to a tune called Riot, which is, it's a tune that speaks to sort of the dynamics that lead up to a riot, increasing like social and cultural frustration and anger at the system, if you will, or systems of control and power and oppression and marginalization and so on. But it's interesting, like, more and more it seems as we move along in 2022, political violence is being normalized, political violence is being accepted, political violence in terms of like heated rhetoric and violent rhetoric is being embraced, particularly on the right. But ultimately, I think political violence is a horrific phenomenon, and ultimately, even if I do support organized resistance to oppressive institutions and agencies, I do recognize the wisdom of this song, which is basically to say the song talks about how, if people who are part of a movement and who want reform or, drastic change even, if they play into the authorities' hands, if they spill over into violence, it can give those very same authorities, those very same institutions and agencies, all the pretext they need to crack down, to, neuter the movement's leadership, to intimidate and scare others from participating in otherwise legal public demonstrations and so on. And ultimately, these events and these groups, when they sort of end up spilling over into violence or lashing out, or maybe it could even be an agent provocateur who like throws the first brick, but that leads other people to kind of stepping beyond the barrier, whether a physical barrier or like a behavioral barrier that they might not have breached before. So again, it could be an agent provocateur from the state, which would be another form of control in the way that they sort of like, kill a resistance movement or a reform movement from inside. But even if there's not an agent provocateur, what often happens is these movements and these like displays of anger and frustration, these riots, are pushed into parts of cities that are, where these very people who are oppressed, these very people who are marginalized live. And so what ends up happening is, the sort of anger spills over, and then, people are throwing bottles, and then the police move in and they're pushing back protesters and using batons and so on. At the end of all this, the neighborhood that gets destroyed is the neighborhood where these protesters live, not where the elites live, not where the people who run these institutions and who set down these draconian and exploitative and oppressive policies, not where they live. So the final sort of line of the song, the final thought that is left with the listener is, tonight it's a blast, but tomorrow you're homeless. Or it's actually in reverse. It's like, well, tomorrow you're homeless. I don't know if you've thought about this, but hey, tonight it was a blast, right? You finally got to like get rid of all that pent-up frustration about, your crappy wages and the fact that they never fixed the roads in your part of town, and the fact that, you voted for this politician who said he was going to change things, but then he just, got pats on the back from like special interests and, made backroom deals with the very people that he was criticizing before he got into office. And so now you feel like even your vote or even the like bit of civic engagement that you have have doesn't matter, and you're getting more and more frustrated, and maybe you lost your job because they gotta send the factory over to some other country where there's no labor laws, so they can make the same products for a whole lot cheaper, even if they have to ship them back over. So now you're out of work, and now you don't really have anyone that you can like lean on to try to influence policy. So you know what? People are mad tonight. I'm going outside, and while I'm outside, you know what? That guy just threw a brick. I'm gonna fucking throw a brick too. And then oops. Now that led the cops to swarm down and to push you back and to damage your own neighborhood, and people are setting fire to things because, well, that's not my house, but it is in my neighborhood. Oh shit, well, that was my business. And so it just gets to all different sides of violent collective action, riots and protests and so on. But the underlying message is that if you give those very oppressive authorities the excuse they need to be even more brutal in their repression, well, then they're often going to take that advantage, if you will. So it's an interesting song. Like I said, I do think Jello certainly supports organized civil disobedience and resistance to oppressive entities, but I do think this is absolutely a fair warning for why violence should always not be the goal, why it should be little more than something you use for self-defense, because the moment you start perpetuating the violence, the elites with their institutions and their agencies can use that as cover for even more draconian repression. So anyway, that's what the song is speaking to. Let me know if you have a thought about any particular aspect of that, like in support of or in disagreement of. I am, of course, always welcoming of all opinions and interpretations here. But here we go. This is Riot by the Dead Kennedys on their album Plastic Surgery Disasters, which I think is 1983 or 82. Doesn't say here, so give me a second to check. This album is 1982. Oh, psychedelic guitar. Ominous.
Riding the unbeatable high. Adrenaline shoots your nerves to the sky. Everyone knows this town is gonna blow, and it's all gonna burn right now.
Menacing, like metallic, distorted guitar work.
Now you can smash all the windows that you want. Fire and aid.
Awesome friends and rock.
Throwing a brick never felt so damn good. Smash more glass, scream with a laugh, and
wallow in the crowd.
Watch them kicking people's ass. To get to the place where wheels and drive with. It's
Walled off by the trucks. Play right into their hands. Burn it to the ground instead. Tomorrow homeless, tonight it's blast. It feels like you're in a chaotic situation. It feels like the hectic chaos of violent public situation. Jump and shout for joy.
Quickly dive back in the crowd, so away now, don't get caught.
But they're gone. Pointing out how, like, some people, they're not there for the political reasons. Sort of capitalizing on what's happening to be reckless, to break shit, to steal shit. And again, maybe some of them are actually sent there to distort what the movement is trying to do. Oh shit.
The barricades spring up from nowhere. Cops in helmets line the lines. Shut the crowd into your bellies. The trigger fingers want an excuse. Now! Raging mob across the turn. As far as the who goes first. No one dares to cross the line.
Whoops.
The cops.
No, that thing's one.
Tonight it's a blast. Tomorrow you're homeless. Tonight it's a blast.
The way, the last blast,
Tomorrow you're homeless.
this is like,
Tonight it's a blast. Tomorrow you're homeless. Tonight it's a blast. Tomorrow you're homeless. Tonight it's a blast.
blast. Wicked. Yeah, like I said, I think the lyrics are very challenging, and I do enjoy the Dead Kennedys. You know, a lot of Jello's lyrics. Like, he's not afraid to call out like other people with whom he probably shares a lot of values, which is to say, like, a lot of Dead Kennedys songs criticize large conservative systems of power, but they do also criticize, you know, anarchists who go on star trips too, and people who are so militant that they put people off to good ideas, and to hear the idea that, yeah, I support collective action, but when it's dominated or accentuated by violence, it actually can cause harm to the very communities that it's supposedly striving to, like, initiate reform for, and indeed it can play right into the hands of those brutal and oppressive authorities. So yeah, I do like Jello's lyrics because he's not afraid to turn the lens on his own scene, on people who share his progressive values, and even himself, to criticize. I remember seeing a spoken word, I saw him do spoken word in LA. Was it at the Galaxy? I'm trying to remember like what venue it was at, but yeah, it was like maybe 04, 05, something like that. And he was talking about one of his earlier spoken word albums, and he was talking about that speech he gave, Die for Oil, and he was like, you know, I think maybe there's still something there, but I think I was oversimplifying that. You know, I think, you know, what was happening with, you know, U.S. deployment to the Middle East even before the war on terror and so on, it's more complicated. Yes, I do think in some ways it was about control of energy and fossil fuels, but I think it was about far more than that, and he was basically critiquing his old speech. So I've always enjoyed that about Jello Biafra. I think a true punk is someone who, you know, holds their own ideas and thoughts and perspectives to at least as high a scrutiny as they do for other people people's ideas. So shout out to Jello, shout out to the song for, again, being sort of a challenging song that, comes at this issue of civil disobedience from a couple different directions, including a critical one. But yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know if you like this album. Let me know if you have any other requests, either Dead Kennedys or otherwise. Other than that, thank you for listening and watching. I will see you next time. Peace.